grade 7. Welcome to our week 2 lessons in Mapeh. Here are the topics. For music, we have the characteristics of Mindanao musical instruments. For arts, the Mindanao art elements analysis, which are the artifacts and art objects. For PE, we have the background of tinikling dance, and last for health, the understanding stress. To start with music, the characteristics of Mindanao musical instruments. Musical instruments are important throughout Mindanao. Some indigenous instruments can be made in the community from materials readily available in the natural environment. The other instruments are made especially by trained craftsmen using materials prepared by different individuals. Many musical instruments carry symbolic significance, which appears in the ways instruments are used, decorated, named, or handled before and after use. Now, let's study about the classification of Mindanao musical instruments. Let's start with their aerophones. So once we've said aerophone, it requires an air stream to produce sound. They may be whirled through the air or blown into by a player. So samples of it are flutes, whistles, reed instruments, and horns. So one of the best example of aerophone instrument that they have in Mindanao is what we call as suling. So let us watch and listen on how the suling sounds. So that's how it sounds, the suling instrument. So if you want to view the whole video of this kind of instrument, then you can visit on this link. Next, let's have the chordophone. Once we've said chordophone, it have one or more stretchable strings which is attached to a frame or sound box. The sound is produced by plucking, rubbing, striking, or bowing the string. So the best example that they have, the best chordophone example that they have in Mindanao is the kudyapi. So let us hear how the kudyapi sounds. Alright, for the full video, you can visit on this link. Next, let's have their idiophones. Actually, they have a lot of idiophone instruments here in Mindanao. So let us start with their gabang. But before that, let us know what an idiophone means. Idiophone produce musical sound by vibrating when the body of the instrument itself is struck, stomp, shaken, scrape, rub, or pluck. So, let us hear how the gabang instrument sounds. Alright, so just visit on this link for the full video. Next, another example of an idiophone instrument that they have in Mindanao is the Kulintang. Actually, this one is their famous idiophone instrument that they have here in Mindanao. So let us listen how it sounds. The Kulintang. Alright, so another instrument or another idiophone instrument that they have in Mindanao is Agong. Alright, so let us hear how the Agong or Agong sounds. Alright, so all of those are the different classification of Mindanao musical instruments. Now, let us proceed. Oops, there is more. The membranophone, by the way. So, once we've said membranophone, these are instruments that have a skin or membrane stretched over a frame. So, the musical sound is produced by striking or rubbing the membrane or by setting the membrane into a motion with sound waves. So, this instrument, as you can see, it is in a type of hourglass-shaped drum wherein it is used by the Maranao people. So, this one is made of wood wherein its membrane on its top is made up of or made up from the carabao skin. So, once the instrument has attached or any or if it is composed from any membrane of an animal or if it is made from the animal skin, so it is called as a membranophone. Next, let's have the different instrumental music of Mindanao. So first, we have the Kolintang Ensemble. So as a review, once we've said ensemble, it is made of two or more instruments, right? So, the Kulintang Ensemble is a gong-based ensemble which is used by the Maguindanao and Maranao and also the Maranao of Western Mindanao, the Tausug, the Yakan, and the Samabadjao of the Sulu archipelago. So, as you can see on the picture on the right, the Kulintang Ensemble is composed of the kulintang itself or the small gongs, and also this one, the big gong, which is the agong, and it has also two drums, which is a conic drum, and then the other one is the hourglass drum, which are membranophones, while these two are the examples of idiophones. Next, they have also the bamboo ensemble. Of course, it is made for the purpose of entertainment and personal expression of their spiritual faith. And it is so called as bamboo ensemble because most of the instruments are made up of bamboos, just like this one. So, meaning The gabang instrument is one of the example of the bamboo ensemble. Next to that is the solo instruments. So, the examples of solo instruments are kudiapi and suling. Why we call it as a solo instrument? Because it is a piece or a section of a piece played or sung featuring a single performer. So, you can play it by solo. Alright, so you may be performing completely alone or supported by an accompanying instrument. Alright, so all of those are the instrumental music of Mindanao. The Kolintang Ensemble, Bamboo Ensemble, and the solo instruments. So, here are the summary of it. So, let's proceed on your music activity. In here, you are going to identify how the given instrument is being classified and identify how the given musical instruments produce their sounds. So, just write down your answer on the given table below. So, as you can see on this table, on the left, these are the musical instruments of Mindanao and also the link that I gave you also a while ago. So on the third column, you are going to classify whether this particular instrument is an aerophone, a chordophone, an idiophone, or a membranophone. So on the fourth column, you are going to write on how does the instrument produce sound. Let's say for example, is it make sounds by blowing an air on the instrument, or by tapping on the stretch membrane, or by plucking the strings. So that's how you're going to answer it. And for the last column, you are going to write what kind of instrumental music it is. Is it Kolintang Ensemble? Is it belong to the bamboo ensemble, or this one is a kind of instrument which is a solo instrument? So that's how you're going to answer your music activity. So let's move on to arts. The Mindanao art elements analysis, or the artifacts and art objects in Mindanao. So an artifact is an object made by a human being. Artifacts include art, tools, and clothing made by people of any time and place. The term can also be used to refer to the remains of an object, such as a shard of broken pottery or glassware. So the artifacts are immensely useful to scholars who want to learn about a culture. Archaeologists excavate areas in which ancient cultures lived and use the artifacts found there to learn about the past. Many ancient cultures did not have a written language, or did not actively record their history before. So the artifacts sometimes provide the only clues about how the people lived before. So here are the artifacts in Mindanao. First one is the maitum anthropomorphic burial jars. So this one are earthenware secondary burial vessels, which is discovered in 1991 by the National Museum of the Philippines. The archaeological team in Ayub Cave, Barangay Pinol, Maitum, Sarangani Province, Mindanao, Philippines. So the jars are anthropomorphic is characterized by a design that suggests human figures with a complete or a partial facial features of the first inhabitants of Mindanao. What actually makes these anthropomorphic pots interesting is that they resemble human figures. The heads, which are the covers, also portrays the different kinds of facial expressions, whether the person who died is sad, if it has a contentment on his life, or if it reflects joy. All right. So that is the Maitum burial jars from Mindanao. Next is the Balangay. Balangay are the wooden boats of Butuan Agusan del Norte, southern Mindanao. There are several wooden boats or balangays discovered in Butuan, Agusan del Norte, southern Mindanao. These are local Butuan boats that were constructed using the edge, pedge, and plank built ancient technique which is quite remarkable. So these one are the old balangays that they've discovered. And here's the picture of the balangay before that they are using before. Alright. So for your art activity, during today's visit, you'll be acting as a special kind of anthropology. So let's say for example that you are an anthropology, so here's what you're going to do. The evidence you have to work with is the art on display here in a museum. So this artworks may be beautiful to look at, but they're also artifacts or objects made and used by people in the past and filled with clues about those people and the world in which they live. So in here you can see two pictures. Letter A is the maitum jar and then the other one is the balangay. What you're going to do is to choose one only. I repeat, choose one and describe what you have just discovered about these artifacts. So let's say for example, you've chosen the maitum jar or the letter A. So you are going to write your observations on this part 1. Observe and describe. So, for number 1, you are going to list as many materials as you can use to make this artifact. So, what do you think are the materials which is made to make this kind of artifact? Next, describe the shape of the artifact. So, what do you think is the shape of the maitum jars? Is it circular or oblongated? Whatever. Next, describe the decorations on the artifact. So, what can you say about the decorations that you may see on the maitum jar? Next, for the fourth list adjectives that describe the artifact. So, what can you say, or how can you describe the maitum jar? Is it looks a jar, or looks a vessel, or looks a pot, or looks a facial jar, or whatever? Next, last, list any clues that might suggest how the artifact was used. So you can put some clues that can suggest you on how this artifact or this object was used before. Alright, so for your part 2, you are going now to do your hypothesis, wherein based on the details you've observed and described, develop a hypothesis about the function or purpose of this artifact. So, for you, what do you think is the purpose of those kinds of artifacts or objects that they've used before? So, in here, you are going to complete the statement wherein it is written here, I think that this artifact is a blank. So, just continue the statement. And because of the following evidence or evidences, though. So, you can put here some evidences for you to clarify on us that your evidences are true and correct. Alright? So, let's move on to PE, the background of tinikling dance. So, tinikling is one of the oldest dances in the Philippines. It is characterized by the movements of one or more dancers between two bamboo poles, while these are beaten in a certain rhythm against each other onto the ground. So, to give you some background on how it starts, the tinikling dance, so let us hear this story. So there are numerous stories about the origin of tinikling. So one of the most common story is that it had arisen among field workers. So it started with the field workers before, or the Filipino field workers. So Before, when the Spanish controlled the Philippines, the indigenous locals often work on the huge plantations and haciendas of the colonial rulers. So if someone work too slowly, or if he is looks lazy while doing his work, he had to fear harsh penalties. So for the punishment for those lazy and slow people, they had to stand between two spine tip bamboo poles, which were then struck against the feet of the offenders. So this tried to escape for them to escape the painful punches by hopping over the rods. So to escape with that punches, they need to hop. Alright? They need to hop over the rods. So when the workers returned to their communities, they started training. They trained themselves to escape the blows of the bamboo poles. So out of this, first they use it as a competition, and then it evolves, and it becomes a skill, and finally it becomes a dance. So later, the movements of the tickling bird, I know if you are familiar with this tickling bird, this one is the tickling bird that you see on the picture. Tickling bird, wherein it is incorporated and fixed sequences of steps emerge that determine the dance in its present form. That's why it is so called as tickling dance. Alright, so for your activity, this one is a loop a word. In here, you are going to encircle the word that is described by the given definition in each number. So you need to read first the definition, or the statement below. So for number 1, the name tinikling is derived from the bird known in the Philippines as blank. So you need to find your answer on this loop word. So just encircle your answer, or if you have highlighter, then you can highlight your answer. So that's how you're going from number 1 to number that's how you're going to do from number 1 to number 8. Instead of writing your answer on the blank, just encircle your answer on a loop word. And for your activity 2, you are just going to answer the following question. For number 1, why is it important to understand the nature and background of dance? For you, what is the importance of it? And for number 2, what do you think are the purposes of the costumes in performing the tinikling dance? Why do they need to wear a costume? To portray what? For you, what do you think is the purpose of wearing a costume while they are dancing that kind of national dance, or Philippine national dance, the tinikling dance? So, next, let's have in health. Let us talk about stress. So let us understand what a stress is. Once we've said stress, it is a physiological or physical and emotional responses to a significant or unexpected change or disruption one's life. That is according to Piney et al. Of 2005. So as you can see on the picture, you may see a woman, woman wherein he looks sad and thinking something, thinking a lot of problems, just like that. So that is a stress kind of a person. So what about the stressor? Once we've said stressor, it refers to the things that make a person stress. So what are the different stressors, or what are the common stressors that the what are the common what do you think are the common stressors that make a person stress? So for example, problem, yeah, frustration, pressure, work, job, management, debt, a lifestyle, desperate, overwork, unhappy, worry, danger, and many more. So there are a lot of stressors that makes a person stress. So Do you know that there are two types or two kinds of stress? First one is the eustress. Once we've said eustress, it refers to a positive and healthy response of the body from a stressor. So, meaning a stress is not always negative. There is also a positive stress wherein it is a healthy response of the body, or there is a healthy response of the body from that kind of stressor. It produces good effects to one's well-being. Example of eustress or positive stress is when a person who studied for a long hour and took long hour in reviewing for his or her exam, then he got or she got an outstanding grade in the exam, then of course she or he may feel happiness and enjoyment. So that is a kind of eustress or a positive stress. Yes, you are stressed while doing that, but after all of it, once you've got uh, a positive product or solution, then it is a eustress or a positive stress. Next, the distress. Of course, this one is the contrast of eustress. That's why distress. It refers to a negative reaction of the body towards a given stressor. It may cause problems in health, alter the mood and emotions, and even affect the way a person think. So this one is very wrong stress. Example of this stress is when a person woke up late for work, she or he may feel anger and disappointment. All right, so that is a kind of these two are the two kinds of stress, which is contrast to each other, the eustress and the distress. So, for your activity in health, you are just going to identify the following situation that develops eustress and distress. So, just put an X if you consider the following stressors as a source of distress, and put a check if it cause eustress. I repeat, X if it is distress, and check if it is eustress. So let's say for example, getting a high grade. So what kind of stress is it? Of course, that is a eustress. Then put a check. So let's say for example, you lose your cell phone. That is a kind of stress also if you lose your cell phone. So what kind of stress is it? Is it a distress or eustress? So that's how you're going to answer your activity number 1. That is 10 items. And for activity number 2, you need to create your own video on how the following factors contributes to your eustress and distress. Choose one factor. So I'll repeat, choose one factor only. Actually, you may see 4 factors below. One of it is family, next is peers, school, or community. Just choose one of the factors. Let's say for example, you've choose your family. So how you are going to create a video on how your family contributes to your eustress and to your distress. A short video is already accepted. So, just submit your video on my FB Messenger. So, that's how you're going to do all of your activities from music to health. By the way, so there is also a rubrics for your activity too. The criterias are content, sequence of information, and effectiveness. So, if you present an accurate presentation wherein there is no factual error in it, then you will be given 4 points. Alright? So, next, if you have a sequence of information or it is easy to anticipate the next scene, for another 4 points. And then the effectiveness video includes all the materials needed to give good understanding to the topic, then another 4 points. Okay, so if you got all of this one, then as an excellence, then you will be given 15 points. It's up to your video on how we are going to give you a high points or high grade. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Always take care, and please do not forget to like and subscribe on this channel. Bye.